Kamala Harris says that she is backing President Biden's plan to reform the Supreme Court, which would impose an 18-year term limit for justices, enforce an ethics code, and limits on presidential immunity. House Speaker Mike Johnson posting on X, quote, "This dangerous gambit of the Biden-Harris administration is dead on arrival in the House." Biden responding to Speaker Johnson. Watch this.
Speaker Johnson says your Supreme Court reform is dead on arrival. What's your reaction, sir? Speaker Johnson said it's dead on arrival. That he is? How are you going to get this going? How are you going to get this done?
Everything I've ever touched.
Well, the president reportedly did not run his plans by congressional Democrats before announcing it. He didn't even tell lawmakers who were working on Supreme Court reforms. Here is former President Trump weighing in on Biden's proposal. Watch.
They're also, the one thing you didn't say, they want to pack the court. What they really want to do more than any of it is pack the court. They want to put in, so I've heard as many as 27. This is never going to happen. I'll tell you, if I'm president, it doesn't happen. We keep it the way it is. And it's been working very well for a long period of time. I mean, basically, they want to create another Congress. They want to have so many people. Let's just go to another Congress.
Joining me now is West Virginia Senator Shelley Moore Capito. She's the vice chair of the Republican Conference and a member of the Senate Appropriation, Rules, Environment and Public Works and Commerce, Science and Transportation Committees. Senator, good morning.
Good morning, Cheryl. Thanks.
So, Bill Barr writes on FoxNews.com that the growing threat behind Biden's Supreme Court proposal is, and he goes on to explain what he's saying. He goes, basically, they're targeting Alito and Thomas with the term limits idea. And then he also says the Supreme Court is the only branch of government that stands in the way of one-party rule.
Well, I mean, if you look at the way our system was set up, it's a balance of power, checks and balances, and the judiciary is the third branch. And basically, what we're seeing here is they don't like the decisions that this court has made, and so they're going to change the court. The same way they don't like the decision that their Democrat nominating process went through, so they changed that process to get Vice President Harris to be their nominee. To me, this is not just court packing. This is just a way to divert attention, I think, away from the real issues of this campaign, which are the policies of the Biden-Harris campaign and their administration. But honestly, I think this just smacks of arrogance, in my view. You don't like a decision, so you're going to change the court. That's not how it works here.
Well, you know, I have to point this out. The editorial board at the Journal wrote this morning, and this is quite the line: "Never mind the spectacle of a man in public life for 50 years demanding term limits. The breach is his." They're talking about Joe Biden.
Right. I mean, that's the irony of this. I think, obviously, the court has lifetime appointments for a reason, so to ride out the political storms of different presidencies and different majorities in the House or the Senate, different policies. It's supposed to be interpreting, which it does very well, our Constitution. They just don't like the way the last several decisions have come down. And remember, Senator Schumer on the courthouse steps saying, Justice Alito, you don't know what's going to be coming after you, and so this is what they're presenting: an ethics, a term limit, and basically what they will end up with is more justices if they have their way.
Well, you are hard at work in Washington, Senator, right now with this. So some of those anti-Israel protesters that were arrested last week during Benjamin Netanyahu's address to Congress had those charges dropped. At least 8 people are now facing federal charges for their actions. But some of the charges include defacing federal property, assaulting a police officer, attempted theft, attempting to carry a dangerous weapon. You have now introduced the Restoring Civility on Campus Act that forces universities and the White House to quickly respond to religious discrimination complaints in college campuses. Tell us more about your push now for this.
Right. Well, I think we saw at the end of last year, at the end of the school year, where our colleges and universities were coming up extremely short to protect Jewish students on campus to ensure their safety, to make sure that they can actually attain the education that they're paying for and that they are living on campus to attain. And I questioned Secretary Cardona in my committee, saying, what is the Department of Civil Rights doing under the Department of Education? Because they're tasked with making sure that colleges and university campuses are not discriminating against certain students. And he said, well, we haven't really been there. They hadn't even been up to Columbia University, which was at that point the eye of the storm. And so what we want to do through this bill is to make sure there's more transparency, to make sure that these actions are addressed immediately, and that anti-Semitism cannot be allowed to foment on university and college campuses the way they were last spring. Now, we're getting ready to go back into this in the fall. Obviously, most universities have fewer students in the summer. More students will be coming in the fall, and I think this is the perfect time for us as a Congress to say, look, administration, you have to hit this head on, and you have to ensure that there is discrimination in any form is not permitted on college and university campuses.
And using the Department of Education for that purpose. And another side of this that we've seen, you mentioned Columbia, was the cost to the local cities that had to deal with this. I mean, the overtime from NYPD, for example, all of those costs were falling on the cities. And when you've got these multi-billion-dollar endowments at these universities. So I think the financial, maybe that's not under your purview, but I think a lot of our viewers found that offensive.
Well, I think as well, too, is when you looked and dug deep to see who are these protesters and what are they doing on the campuses, they weren't students in the greatest majority. Many of them were paid protesters, and we know that Iran is fomenting this protest. We know that they probably paid in fact what went on in Union Station last week, which was horrifying. They burned the American flag. I agree with President Trump. Anybody that participates in burning the American flag should be incarcerated for a year. If you don't like it, leave. And so that's the position that I would take. This is not representative of the middle part of the country where I live, and where people are trying to get up and go to work every day and afford to put food on the table. And so it's very offensive to those of us who've had family members who have served, and to see the desecration of our flag and also the brutality towards our law enforcement officers.
Absolutely. Well, keep up the good work, Senator Shelley Moore Capito. We're going to be watching.
Thank you.